Here is Immortal Moments for explanation. Friends, like videos and subscribes to our channel. Martial Universe Season 10 Part 65 Explanation. So let's start our explanation. The two Darkness Palace elders looked at Lindong in astonishment. Within the bloody mist that filled the air, the latter's smile appeared just like a devil's. It made a chill rise inside one's heart. Bang! However, the shock on their faces merely lasted for an instant, before quickly transforming into ferocity as mighty Yuan power suddenly swept out from their bodies. With a low cry, two powerful streams of Yuan power spluttered out. They were accompanied by intense killing intent as they ruthlessly shot towards Lindong. Lindong still wore a faint smile as he looked at the both of them. He did not show any signs of attacking. However, the bodies of the two elders suddenly stiffened just as their attacks were about to reach Lindong. The mightily churning Yuan power within their bodies also froze along with their bodies as true horror finally rose into their eyes. They had discovered that they had lost control of their bodies at this moment. This was the first time they had encountered such a situation. They had not felt so helpless even when facing the old palace master in the past. "You, who exactly are you?" the two elders involuntarily exclaimed with horror. "Friend, we are from Darkness Palace. If you are willing to let us off, we will apologize if we have offended you in any way. Our Darkness Palace will also become your friend. You only need to let us know if there are any matters we can help with." Behind him, Mu Shao, Chen Gui and the others who had been caught, were stunned as they watched the rapidly changing expressions of the two elders. The group involuntarily inhaled a deep breath of air and looked at Lindong as if he was a ghost. Those two elders were top experts even in their Darkness Palace. Yet, they actually appeared so weak in the hands of this young man, who seemed to be in his 20s. Chen Gui was clearly the most shocked amongst them. He had met Lindong in the past. While Lindong's strength had surprised him 3 years ago, it was not much greater than his own. Yet, in the short 3 years since they last met, Lindong's strength had actually reached such a frightening level. "That little girl you mentioned earlier is Qingtan, right?" Lindong smilingly looked at the two elders from Darkness Palace and asked. The two elders' expressions changed slightly when they heard this. Soon after, they gritted their teeth and nodded. They seemed to be grasping onto a strand of hope as they asked, "Could this sir have some grudge with her? Didn't I say this earlier? Qingtan is my younger sister. I am her big brother," Lindong smilingly said. However, his smile was exceptionally icy. The pupils of the two elders shrunk as they repeatedly complained in their hearts. Who could have imagined that the seemingly solitary little girl would actually have such a terrifying big brother? Moreover, they were unfortunate enough to bump into him. "Oh, so you are the big brother of the palace master. Ha ha, we are family. Today, this traitor, Chen Gui, was planning on betraying our Darkness Palace. The two of us came to capture him on the orders of the palace master." One of the elder laughed dryly. "Oh, so that's what happened." Lindong smiled and nodded. The chill in the hearts of those two elders rose when they saw Lindong's smile. They were after all extremely experienced and cunning individuals, hence they immediately sensed the great danger. With a cry, Yuan power swept out from their bodies without reserve, allowing them to escape Lindong's restraints in a split second. After which, they moved, turning into two rays of black light that shot out in two different directions. Anxiousness instantly flooded Chen Gui's face the moment he saw that these two old fellows were about to flee. However, he calmed down when he saw Lindong's unconcerned expression. Although both he and Lindong were not very close, the methods he had displayed in unique devil region were clear evidence that he was no saint. He would never do something like letting a potential threat go. It was just as Chen Gui had expected. Lindong merely calmly watched the two shoot away. He waited till they were about to charge into the dense fog, before he finally extended his hand. With a light grasp, black light flashed. "Ch." The moment Lindong closed his hand, Chen Gui and the others saw the space in front of the two elders suddenly distort. Two huge black holes surfaced out of nowhere as devouring power erupted and swallowed them before they could even scream. Bang bang bang. Violent shaking noises were emitted from within the black hole as if the two elders were frantically struggling within it. However, this struggle did not continue for long, before it gradually weakened within the swiftly rotating black hole. The black hole rotated for quite some time, before Lindong gently waved his hand. The black hole then faded together with the two Samsara Stage Darkness Palace elders. The empty land once again became completely quiet. Both Chen Gui and Mu Sha were stunned as they watched this scene. Those two elders had simply died in such a manner? Brother Chen Gui, are you all right? Lindong chuckled while everyone was stunned. He flicked his finger and the glowing black chains, which were covering their bodies, were completely shattered. Senior brother Chen Gui, are you all right? Mu Sha pounced over at this moment. She immediately started to weep when she saw Chen Gui's injuries. Chen Gui comforted her. After which, he stood with great difficulty and cupped his hands together towards Lindong while wearing a complicated expression. We meet again, brother Lindong. I would never have imagined that you would have already become so powerful within a short 3 years. Chen Gui was considered an extremely talented individual. Otherwise, he would not have managed to become the most outstanding person on the Eastern Xian region sect wanted list. Yet, he had barely advanced to the profound death stage after 3 years, a speed which was honestly not bad. However, when compared to a irregular like Lindong, it was after all rather lacking. Senior brother Chen Gui, are you actually acquainted with big brother Lindong? By the side, Mu Sha rubbed her eyes and could not help but ask. She was still holding the notion that Lindong had been joking earlier. Brother Lindong is Palace Master's elder brother. Palace Master is finally saved this time. Joy was revealed in Chen Gui's eyes as he stared at Lindong and laughed. Brother Chen Gui, just what has happened? Why has Qingtan become the Palace Master of Darkness Palace? Lindong frowned slightly and inquired. Chen Gui smiled bitterly upon hearing this. He was quiet for a moment before he replied, Brother Lindong, do you still remember that incident from 3 years ago? Back then, Qingtan had to watch as you were forced to leave by the 3 great heads. No one knew whether you were dead or alive. In her fury, she wanted to fight it out with the 3 great heads. Fortunately, Master appeared and rescued her. However, Qingtan seemed to have completely changed after she returned. Her previous liveliness was now nowhere to be seen. She became extremely quiet and was frequently lost in thought. Soon after, she took the initiative to ask Master to let her enter Darkness Judgment Hall. Darkness Judgment Hall? Lindong's eyebrows were scrunched together as unease surged within his heart. What kind of place is it? A place with the greatest authority within Darkness Palace, but it is also the most cruel. Since our Darkness Palace leads the Northern Xian region, there are naturally many factions that oppose us. Darkness Judgment Hall is where rebels are punished. It is a place with no mercy, only blood. Chen Gui revealed a bitter expression as he slowly explained. What? Lindong boiled with rage while he listened. In his eyes, Qingtan was ultimately still that same a little girl who was constantly buzzing at this side since young. She was kind-hearted, a little silly and adorable. Back at the Qingyang town, she had refused to voluntarily train because she was afraid of hardship. Yet, she had actually gone to this so-called Darkness Judgment Hall and drenched her hands with blood. This made his heart ache and his eyes redden. Although Lindong's cultivation journey was also built on blood and flames, it would be better if he was the one who ended up being soaked in blood, than to see the little girl, who had always hid behind him, become just like him. He spared no effort in his training and struggled through numerous dangerous life and death situations. What he sought was extremely simple, to protect those whom he cared about and allow them to have the purest smiles. Yet, the little girl whom he doted on the most had now ended up being dyed in blood like himself. Is she asking for a beating? Lindong's fists were so tightly clenched that creaking noises could be heard as his voice seeped out from between his grinding teeth. Chen Gui smiled bitterly when he saw Lindong's furious state. After witnessing how lively Qingtan was in the past, and seeing what she had now become, one would indeed feel an incomparable heartache. I asked her once, she said that as long as she could exterminate Yuan Gate one day, she did not care what she would become. Chen Gui looked at Lin Dong with a complicated expression in his eyes as he spoke. The only reason she is doing this, is to avenge you. The fury on Lin Dong's face froze at this very moment. He quickly shut his eyes and deeply inhaled. His voice was a little hoarse as he mumbled, "This foolish girl. Does she really have so little faith in me?" Lin Dong was quiet for a long time. Finally, he waved his hand and said, "What is the current situation in your Darkness Palace?" Qingtans spent 2 years to become the head judge of Darkness Judgment Hall, thus gaining control of the greatest power within Darkness Palace. Later on, Master failed in his attempt to break through to the reincarnation stage. In his final moments, he passed on his inheritance and the Darkness ancestral symbol to Qingtan and bestowed onto her the position of the new Palace Master of Darkness Palace. However, Darkness Palace is far too large. Although Qingtan had improved by leaps and bounds in the last 3 years, there was still a gap in terms of experience when compared with several elders. Hence, some elders secretly did not accept her and attempted to join forces to remove Qingtan. Nevertheless, the present Qingtan is different from the past. She is likewise in control of a rather powerful force. Hence, she constantly fought against those who opposed her in Darkness Palace during the past. Lin Dong's expression became volatile as he listened. He was really unable to imagine how such a naive young lady could fight with those cunning and ruthless old fellows of Darkness Palace. Just thinking about it was enough to understand just how much hardship and grievances this little girl had suffered. Qingtan is no pushover. She initially displayed a weak front while buying time to absorb the inheritance left to her by Master. Moreover, she also quietly gained complete control over the Darkness ancestral symbol. After which, the retaliation began. Those elders suffered great losses and were utterly crushed 2 months ago. However, just as Qingtan was about to stabilize the situation, the elders managed to invite the 2 oldest elders of Darkness Palace. Both are peak experts who have stepped into the reincarnation stage. With them personally stepping forward, the situation of Darkness Palace was reversed once again. Other than the Darkness Judgment Hall that Qingtan is in control of, most others have leaned towards the opposition. Those of us who support Qingtan were also quietly eliminated. Chen Gui smiled bitterly and continued, "If my guess is right, they plan to force Qingtan to hand over her palace master position and the Darkness ancestral symbol during the religious ceremony 3 days later. Qingtan will no longer have any way out." Lin Dong's originally ashen complexion gradually turned to calmness after hearing Chen Gui's words. He shut his eyes. A long while later, he waved his hand and said, "Brother Chen Gui, bring me to Darkness Palace. Regardless of how much I dislike this girl doing such things, she is still my younger sister. Anyone who wants to bully my younger sister will be slaughtered by me." Lin Dong opened his eyes. The baleful aura within them caused a chill to rise from the bottom of Chen Gui and the rest's feet. Qingtan, who had come out from the Darkness Judgment Hall, really paled in comparison. The tens of thousands of large mountains were so vast that they even exceeded Lin Dong's expectations. Moreover, even with Chen Gui, someone who was familiar with the terrain, leading the way, it was still 2 days later before they finally left this area. Standing outside the area where tens of thousands of large mountains stood, Lin Dong glanced at the many untouched mountain ranges that seemingly cut across the sky. Then, he involuntarily sighed softly, before he circulated his mental energy and left a spatial stamp at this area. By doing so, if he wants to come back here in the future, he could use the spatial stamp that he left behind to directly tear the empty space and reach here. It would be much more efficient than before. "Brother Lin Dong, we have only reached the edge of the northern Xian region. The headquarters of Darkness Palace is located in Darkness City, which is in the middle of the northern Xian region. Therefore, we will need a couple of days in order to reach that city. I wonder if we will be in time for the worship ceremony." Chen Gui looked into the distance before he spoke in a worried voice. "1 day is enough." Lin Dong smiled faintly. Unlike the mountain range, the northern Xian region was not covered by extremely frightening dense yuan power fog. Therefore, he was naturally to unleash his full speed and it was likely possible for them to reach Darkness City within a day. In that case, let's hurry. The palace master is gradually being isolated by the elders. Meanwhile, those who are loyal to her are either being quietly eliminated or are prevented from returning to Darkness City through various means. Clearly, they are planning to make a move and force her to give up her position during the worship ceremony. Chen Gui sighed. Lin Dong nodded. He mused for a moment before he said, "Brother Chen Gui, those two old monsters who have stepped into the reincarnation stage, are they the strongest ones in Darkness Palace?" It was likely that their journey to the Darkness City was not going to be a peaceful one. In that case, given Lin Dong's character, he naturally wanted to find out about his opponent's strength in order to prevent any mishaps from occurring. According to what I know, those two lords are indeed the most senior individuals within our Darkness Palace. However, you should also know that our Darkness Palace has a very deep foundation and it has existed for thousands of years. Therefore, even I am not certain as to whether there are any more fossil-like old monsters hidden deeper within. Chen Gui pondered for a moment before shaking his head. It was likely that even those elders from Darkness Palace were unsure about this. Therefore, even much less needs to be said about him. Darkness Palace is no ordinary sect. Standing beside him, Ling Qingzhu suddenly said softly, "Our Nine Heavens Supreme Purity Palace also has a long history. Hence, I obtained some information regarding Darkness Palace from some ancient texts. The founder of Darkness Palace should be the second owner of the Darkness Ancestral Symbol. Moreover, the Darkness Ancestral Symbol is different from the other ancestral symbols. The other ancestral symbols were scattered all across the world as their various masters fell into a slumber. Subsequently, they were obtained by other experts. However, it is different for the Darkness Ancestral Symbol. Ever since the Darkness Ancestral Symbol fell into the hands of the second generation and he founded Darkness Palace, the Darkness Ancestral Symbol has always remained within Darkness Palace. It is an heirloom that has been passed down even until today." Oh! A tinge of shock flashed across Lin Dong's eyes. He had the most in-depth understanding of the ancestral symbols. Once such a divine object appeared, it will definitely attract many experts, and it was no simple task to keep an ancestral symbol. One example would be the Lightning Emperor. As he possessed the Thunderbolt ancestral symbol, he was ultimately targeted by the Yimo, resulting in the destruction of his Lightning Cave. If not because he had powerful techniques and was able to seal that Yimo King, and create a Thunder World to hide the Thunderbolt ancestral symbol, it was likely that the Thunderbolt ancestral symbol would have been scattered and obtained by someone else. As such, it was a difficult task for Darkness Palace to continue passing down the Darkness ancestral symbol from one generation to the next. This also indicated how powerful Darkness Palace must be. Otherwise, it would be almost impossible to do this. Let me see. From the second generation, the Darkness ancestral symbol has been passed down 5 times and Qingtan should be the 6th owner of the Darkness ancestral symbol. Ling Qingzhu glanced at Lin Dong and said, "Since Darkness Palace was able to keep the Darkness ancestral symbol for so many years, they definitely possess some secret techniques. However, it seems like Qingtan has not mastered such techniques. Otherwise, there is no way those elders would dare to force her to give up her position. Therefore, we must not let down our guard this time around." Lin Dong focused his eyes, before he nodded. It seems like he had underestimated Darkness Palace previously. After all, the Northern Xian region was nearly as vast as the Eastern Xian region. Yet, Darkness Palace was undoubtedly the overlord of this entire region and there was no other faction that could threaten their dominance. This was completely different from the Eastern Xian region, in which there were many factions standing at the top. In fact, from another point of view, this reflected the strength of Darkness Palace. Nevertheless, I would like to witness the strength of the Northern Xian region's overlord. Lin Dong smiled. Although Darkness Palace was no ordinary faction, he did not fear it at all. After all, with his current strength, he was definitely an elite of this world. As a Samsara stage expert who had touched reincarnation, as well as a supreme symbol master which was comparable to a reincarnation stage expert, an ordinary reincarnation stage expert stood no chance against him. In fact, only those reincarnation stage experts who had experienced one reincarnation tribulation could match up to him. Furthermore, it was extremely difficult to find an expert at this level in this world. If there was, he was most likely an extremely old fossil-like existence who had lived since the ancient times, like Qingxi. Chen Gui secretly sighed in relief when he saw Lin Dong's calm expression. As of now, there was no way he could tell what Lin Dong's strength was. However, from the way he managed to easily kill 2 elders from Darkness Palace, Chen Gui knew that Lin Dong had definitely reached quite a terrifying level. As such, perhaps Lin Dong is the only one who could help Qingtan now. Let's go. Lin Dong waved his hand and ceased speaking. Immediately, a thought passed through his mind, before mighty mental energy subsequently lifted everyone up. After which, the space around them gradually became distorted. In the next moment, everyone vanished simultaneously and they were already 50 kilometers away the next time they appeared. Unlike the eastern Xian region, the northern Xian region did not possess many different empires. Most of the land in this region was managed by the branch palaces that was established by Darkness Palace. A branch palace was equivalent to the king of an empire and there was an extremely complicated bureaucracy beneath it. From this point of view, the management of the northern Xian region by Darkness Palace was better than the way the eastern Xian region was managed. It's no wonder Darkness Palace could continue to remain as the overlord of the northern Xian region. Although there was a huge distance between the tens of thousands of large mountains and Darkness City, the traveling time was greatly reduced as Lin Dong was able to tear the empty space apart. Therefore, by next day morning, they had already arrived at the outskirts of Darkness City. Standing on top of a mountain, Lin Dong looked into the distance. Then, he saw a massive city which stretched on endlessly, located in the area in front of where the mountain and the river crossed each other. It appeared like a half-exposed body of a large ancient beast which was hidden underground and quietly laying low. The entire city was black in color, and it gave off a solemn and heavy feeling. Meanwhile, in the sky above the city, a humongous darkness light barrier enveloped around the entire city. On the light barrier were countless rotating symbols. Meanwhile, mighty ripples, which could not be described with words, spread and caused the empty space to show signs of distortion. Looking from Lin Dong's angle, it was possible to see over a dozen incomparably large city gates. At this moment, large lines of people were queuing outside the city gates, before they slowly streamed into the city. The size of the crowd was extremely startling. This city was undoubtedly the largest one that Lin Dong had ever seen. Given its size, it was likely that this city could easily accommodate tens of millions of people. Hence, the Darkness City was indeed worthy of being the headquarters of Darkness Palace. It was extremely grand and it was no wonder that an intense fight had broke out within Darkness Palace, over the position of Palace Master. After all, the Palace Master of Darkness Palace was basically the overlord of the entire northern Xian region. With a flip of his palm, he would be able to control the lives of countless of people. The worship ceremony is a grand event held by our Darkness Palace once every 3 years. Regardless of their size, every faction in the northern Xian region must come and pay tribute. If someone does not come, the members of Darkness Judgment Hall will be knocking on their doors the very next day to punish them. Chen Gui looked at the vast crowd outside the city before he said, "That Darkness Judgment Hall doesn't sound like a decent place." Lin Dong frowned upon hearing this. Meanwhile, fury involuntarily rose in his heart. After all, there were so many places that lass could go, yet she chose to go to such a bloody and dirty place. When he realized that Lin Dong was outraged, Chen Gui could only smile bitterly. Since the latter killed hundreds of elite Yuan Gate disciples back at the unique Devil City, his tactics were also quite bloody. Yet, he became extremely furious when he heard that Qingtan was doing the same. "Brother Lin Dong, due to the worship ceremony, the security of Darkness City will be at its tightest. Moreover, the Palace Master has been restrained and those elders should have control over the entire city. It is likely that we will be discovered if we enter from the city gates. Since we cannot enter from the city gates, we will just directly rip the city guarding formation and enter." Lin Dong said nonchalantly. "That formation was set up by the first Palace Master of our Darkness Palace. If you forcefully tear it apart, it is likely that you will immediately alert the powerful individuals in the city," Chen Gui said helplessly. "Although that formation is powerful, it is a difficult task to stop me." Lin Dong smiled and said, "Brother Chen Gui, both you and Mu Shou should follow me into the city. Everyone else should remain outside." "I?" Chen Gui nodded. After all, they were of little help even if they entered the city. In fact, they may even end up becoming a hindrance instead. Lindong waved his sleeve. Then, a faint silver light scattered from his hand before it wrapped around the four of them. Soon after, the space around him slowly became distorted, before the four of them disappeared out of the blue. Chen Gui felt his head become giddy. However, by the time he recovered, loud noises promptly swarmed him. He opened his eyes and saw that the four of them were already in the sky above the darkness city. Behind them was the black light barrier, which was still enveloping the city. However, it did not react to their entry. Incredible. Chen Gui sighed. As a member of Darkness Palace, he naturally knew just how powerful that formation was. Yet, Lindong could enter as he pleased. His abilities were truly terrifying. Lindong smiled. Although he had yet to refine the spatial ancestral symbol, it was still possible for him to use some of its strength. Therefore, it was not difficult to get past this formation. Chen Gui looked into the distance and he turned his attention towards the middle of Darkness City. Suddenly, countless black lights suddenly rose towards the sky and they looked just like grand fireworks. His expression gradually turned grave when he saw the black lights. The ceremony has begun. In the middle of the massive Darkness City was a square made up of black rocks where countless black stone pillars were erected. Moreover, these black stone pillars were all covered with the names of the people who have made great contributions to Darkness Palace. At the same time, they were also former top experts within Darkness Palace. This square was called Darkness Square and it was an important place in Darkness City. In fact, this place was only opened each time after the worship ceremony begins. Moreover, those who were allowed to come to this place were all individuals with some standing in the northern Xian region. Of course, their standing and authority were bestowed upon them by Darkness Palace. Currently, Darkness Square was filled with a black sea of people that stretched on endlessly. Even with such a frightening number of people gathered here, this place was eerily silent. In fact, no one dared to make the slightest noise. Meanwhile, countless pairs of eyes were filled with fear as they looked at the middle of the square. At that spot was a black altar and a 10,000-step stone stairs as well. At the top of the stone stairs was a black throne. Anyone seated there would be able to overlook the entire Darkness Square, and anyone who occupied that seat would seemingly become the overlord of the entire northern Xian region. Currently, there was a lovely figure seated on the throne above the altar. She was wearing black robes with mysterious golden symbols covering the edges of her robes. Meanwhile, one could vaguely feel a noble and elegant aura being emitted from her. She had a peaceful and pretty face, along with snow-white skin. Her eyebrows were crescent-shaped and she had a sharp nose. Her serene deep pair of eyes appeared like the deepest night sky. Under her calm and peaceful exterior were endless mysteries and it caused one to become involuntarily intoxicated by her. Although she looked colder and more mature compared to before, it was still possible to see the outline of that lovely young girl from before. Therefore, who else could she be other than Qingtan? As of now, Qingtan no longer had the same youthful ignorance as before. As her eyes moved, they looked as sharp as blades. Moreover, there was also a faint bloodlust flowing beneath them, causing one's heart to shudder. She sat on the throne as she surveyed the sea of people standing on Darkness Square. Everywhere she looked, all she could see were humble and subservient figures. In fact, hardly anyone dared to look directly at her. The lively and tender young lady from before had now become the genuine overlord of the northern Xian region. Her every decision could easily dictate the lives of tens of thousands of people and she had absolute authority. Seated on the throne, she used her cold and stern eyes to survey the entire place before she finally nodded. Let the worship ceremony begin. Many loud and clear voices, which were wrapped with yuan power, spread into the distance and resounded across the place right after she nodded. Immediately, countless black rays of light shot towards the sky, and it looked like a grand banquet was about to begin. Standing in the Darkness Square, the leaders of various factions in the northern Xian region began to show up one after another. After which, their respectful voices spread across this place like waves. The chief of the Northern Mang sect has came over with my members to pay respect. Congratulations on the ceremony. Palace Master is almighty and we all pledge our allegiance to you. The Great Snow Mountain Chief wishes that the Palace Master's impressive and dignified manner will last forever, and that you will always be unbeatable. The worship ceremony was a grand event that affected the entire northern Xian region. In fact, the leaders of 80% of the factions in the northern Xian region would personally show up. After which, they would greet the Palace Master as though they were her subordinates. Moreover, no one dared to miss this event. As such, the experts gathered on this square likely made up 60% of the northern Xian region's fighting strength, and the scale of this event was truly terrifying. Many respectful cries reverberated across the square. However, that noble figure seated above the altar did not reveal even the slightest emotion in her eyes. Instead, she merely looked around before she focused her attention on the front of Darkness Square. At that area, there were many figures quietly seated there. Most of them were elderly individuals with white hair, and the robes that they wore indicated that they had an extraordinary status within Darkness Palace. At this moment, during such a grand occasion, their eyes were all gently shut. Meanwhile, none of them cast a respectful look to the figure above the altar. In fact, some of them even curled their lips. Clearly, they did not approve of her. There were two extremely old figures, who looked like they were about to die, in front of this group. Both of them had a head full of white hair, and their faces were filled with deep gullies. Currently, their heads were gently lowered and it looked like they were asleep. Seated on the throne, when Qingtans' eyes swept across these two figures, her cold pupils hardened slightly. After which, she slowly clenched the small hand under her sleeve, before an icy-cold murderous intent flashed across her eyes. The complicated worship ceremony continued and respectful voices resounded across the entire place. However, everyone could feel that the worship ceremony this time around seemed to be a little different from before. The leaders of the various factions were secretly observing Darkness Square. After which, their eyes paused on the group of elders right at the front. Then, they rotated their eyes and looked around the altar. At that area were countless black-clothed figures, and there was a rich bloody smell being emitted from their bodies. Meanwhile, there was also a ferocious ghost face with a black longsword pierced deep into its head, on their black clothes. Hence, they looked extremely terrifying. Every faction in the northern Xian region knew about these troops and they were all extremely fearful of them. This was because they represented the bloodiest and most powerful department in Darkness Palace, Darkness Judgment Hall. Currently, this group of powerful individuals from Darkness Judgment Hall had formed a tight defense around the altar. Meanwhile, the direction that they were facing was coincidentally the area where the elders were located. Clearly, it seemed as if they were guarding against something. The entire Darkness Square was covered by a strange atmosphere. Some leaders secretly turned to face one another. It was likely that they had heard some rumors as well. In fact, they knew that the worship ceremony this time around would likely be exceptionally chaotic. However, this had little impact on them. After all, it didn't matter whether Darkness Palace was in the hands of the current Palace Master or the Elder Council. That was because they were not qualified to oppose the massive Darkness Palace. Hence, all they had to do this time around was to stand by obediently and watch the show. The respectful praises gradually came to a halt a long while later. Following which, the surrounding atmosphere suddenly stiffened after the din died down. Above the altar, two black-robed elders were standing on the two sides of the throne. When they saw this scene, they turned their attention towards Qingtan, who was currently seated on the throne. After which, they gently swung their hands. "Welcome the ancestral tablet." Qingtan slowly stood up from the throne, before she moved her legs. Then, she clenched her fist, before she gently stomped on the ground. Buzz! A buzzing sound erupted from the countless black stone pillars standing in the square. After which, many black lights shot forth before they crisscrossed in the sky above the square. Then, they transformed into a huge black stone tablet. Meanwhile, the names of the previous palace masters were all carved on that tablet. The countless individuals standing in the square knelt down immediately after the stone tablet appeared. In fact, even those elders in the Elder Council bowed slightly. The only exception were the two elders standing at the front, who merely lowered their heads. Above the altar, Qingtan bowed slightly towards the stone tablet. after which the stone tablet trembled. Then, a dark flight of stairs stretched forward and finally connected to the altar. "Palace Master, please worship the ancestors." The two black-robed elders beside the throne cried out in unison, while wild excitement rose within their eyes. Once this worship ceremony was complete, Qingtans' position as the palace master will be cemented and no one will be able to oppose her. The two elders standing at the front of the elder council finally opened their shut eyes. After which, they gently extended their hands, which were hidden within their sleeves previously. When he saw this scene, a cold glint flashed across the eyes of the elder, who was seated right behind them. Then, he nodded gently before he stood up and cried, "Hold on." His cry immediately caused the atmosphere of the entire square to turn tense. Promptly, the hearts of countless individuals started to pound wildly. Was it about to begin? "First Elder, why are you stopping the palace master from paying worship?" The two black-robed elders' expressions sunk when they saw this. After which, they cried out in a stern voice. The old man, who was being addressed as First Elder, glanced at the both of them with a dark and cold expression. After which, his eyes paused on Qingtan, before he said in an indifferent voice, "According to our palace's rules, only a palace master that is supported unanimously by the Elder Council is qualified to worship our ancestor. However, I believe that the new palace master has not fulfilled this criteria." The two black-robed elders' expressions changed as they turned to look at Qingtan. Qingtan used her icy-cold eyes to stare at the First Elder. After which, a chilly voice sounded, "First Elder, Master has personally passed the position of Palace Master to me before his death. According to the rules, his order surpasses that of the Elder Councils. You claim that the previous Palace Master passed his position over to you just before he died. However, this is merely an one-sided account from you. Based on the information that I obtained, you launched a sneak attack on the previous Palace Master while he was attempting to break through to the reincarnation stage, causing him to fail as a result. Moreover, you snatched the Darkness Ancestral symbol and attempted to seize control of our Darkness Palace." The First Elder chuckled and said, "Girl, you may be young but you are truly ruthless. In fact, you even dare to kill your own teacher. If the position of Palace Master really falls into your hands, I'm afraid that the ancestors of our Darkness Palace will be unable to rest in peace. First Elder, how dare you act disrespectfully towards the Palace Master? If she did not receive it personally from the Palace Master, do you really think that it is so easy to obtain the Darkness Ancestral symbol? In fact, do you think that it is possible to snatch the inheritance of the Palace Master?" A black-robed elder cried out sternly. "Humph, everyone in this world knows that one can only obtain someone else's inheritance only if he obliges. You are attempting to slander the Palace Master and this is a serious offense." The other black-robed elder said in a deep voice. "The previous Palace Master trusted that lass very much. Who knows if she used some dirty tricks to obtain the Darkness Ancestral symbol and his inheritance?" The First Elder waved his hand. Soon after, he rotated his eyes and said, "Moreover, you should be aware that one must have the two sacred items of our Darkness Palace in order to become the Palace Master." Qingtan's eyes were icy cold. Promptly, an ancient symbol slowly surfaced between her brows. After that symbol appeared, the entire place gradually darkened, before an indescribable ancient fluctuation spread. It was the fluctuation from the Darkness Ancestral symbol. When the First Elder felt that fluctuation, a greedy glint flashed across his eyes. Soon after, he chuckled, "The Darkness Ancestral symbol is one of them. But, what about the other?" Qingtan extended her jade-like wrist from her sleeve. Then, she clenched her fist, before black light slowly gathered in her hand. Finally, they transformed into a completely dark black scythe, that was covered with mysterious symbols. Many onlookers immediately felt a chill rushing towards them when that huge scythe appeared. In fact, it seemed as though that black scythe was the scythe of the Grim Reaper. This is the second sacred object of Darkness Palace, the Darkness Saint Scythe, which is ranked 5th on the ancient divine object ranking. First Elder, what more do you have to say now? Qingtan was holding onto her black scythe with an icy cold expression. Thanks to the darkened sky, she looked just like the god of death. The First Elder's elderly face trembled slightly when he saw the large black scythe in Qingtan's hand. Soon after, he turned and looked towards the two elders in front. After he did so, the two elders slowly opened their shut eyes. Then, they stared indifferently at Qingtan, before a completely emotionless voice resounded across the place. "Little girl, are you sure that the darkness inside in your hands is complete?" This episode ends here.